"You're fired, Malika." The words hung in the air like smoke, thick and choking. Malika stood there in the conference room, her worn flats suddenly feeling heavier than they should. Mr. Richardson sat behind his desk, not even bothering to look up from his laptop. "Wait. What?" Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. "But I've been working double shifts. I finished the Morrison account early. You show up here in clothes that look like you bought them from a thrift store," Richardson said, finally glancing up with those cold gray eyes. "You ride the bus to work. Do you know what our clients think when they see someone like you representing Thompson and Associates? Someone like you." The words cut deeper than any blade could. Malika's hands trembled slightly. "Mr. Richardson, I'm good at my job. My performance reviews are irrelevant." He stood up now, adjusting his tie. "This company has an image to maintain, and frankly, you're dragging it down. Security will escort you out." The other executives in the room, Mr. Palmer, Mrs. Beck, Mr. Oyelowo, they all looked away. Every single one of them. People she'd worked alongside for 2 years, people she'd helped with their projects, people who'd smiled at her in the hallways. "This is because I couldn't afford the charity gala ticket, isn't it?" Malika's voice cracked, despite her best efforts. "I told you my mother's medical bills. I don't care about your sob story," Richardson interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. "Poor people problems aren't my concern. Now please, leave before you embarrass yourself further." The room spun slightly. Malika had worked so hard, stayed late so many nights, skipped meals to save money, all to prove she belonged here. And now, she turned toward the door, blinking back the burning in her eyes, because she refused to cry in front of these people. But just as she reached for the handle, the conference room doors swung open. "Welcome back. Before we jump in, drop a pin showing where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Today's about Malika, who's about to get fired for the crime of being poor. But trust me, what happens in the next 60 seconds? Pure karma. Hit subscribe and let's get into it." A man walked in. He was different. Sharp black suit, definitely not from any store Malika could afford to window shop at. Dark hair styled back, and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Behind him stood 2 other men in similar attire, silent and imposing. "Who the hell are you?" Richardson demanded, his face reddening. "This is a private meeting. Sit down." The man's voice was quiet, but it carried weight. Richardson's mouth opened, closed, then opened again, like a fish gasping for air. "I said sit down." This time, Richardson sat. So did everyone else who'd been standing. The man walked further into the room, his steps measured and calm. His gaze swept over the executives before landing on Malika, who stood frozen by the door. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe? But that didn't make sense because Malika had never seen this man before in her life. "My name is Dehan," he said, still looking at Malika, but speaking to the room. "And I just became the majority shareholder of Thompson and Associates, as of 10 minutes ago, actually." The silence that followed was deafening. That's impossible," Mrs. Bayek stammered. "The shareholders would never—" "The shareholders," Dehan interrupted smoothly, "were very eager to sell once they learned about certain financial irregularities in your company's accounts. Embezzlement is such an ugly word, don't you think, Mr. Richardson?" Richardson's face went from red to white in seconds. "I don't know what you're talking about. The offshore accounts, the falsified reports, the money skimmed from client funds over the past 3 years." Dehan pulled out his phone, tapped it a few times. Should I continue, or would you prefer I send this directly to the authorities? You can't prove anything, Richardson said, but his voice shook now. I already did. Due diligence is wonderful, isn't it? Dahan slipped his phone back into his pocket. But that's not why I'm here. Not entirely, anyway. He turned fully toward Malika now, and his expression softened just slightly. You, Malika Bladen, yes? She nodded, unable to form words. How did he know her full name? You're rehired, Dahan said simply. Effective immediately. Triple your previous salary, full benefits, and you'll report directly to me. Malika's brain struggled to catch up with her ears. What? As for you, Dahan continued, turning back to Richardson. You're fired. Security will escort you out. Try to take anything that doesn't belong to you, and we'll add theft to your growing list of problems. Richardson shot to his feet. You can't do this. Do you know who I am? I have connections. I have lawyers. And I have evidence of your crimes, surveillance footage of your affairs with 3 different subordinates, which violates company policy, by the way, and absolutely zero patience for men who abuse their power. Dahan's voice never rose above conversational level, but somehow it filled the entire room. So, I suggest you leave quietly before this gets complicated for you. 2 security guards appeared at the door as if summoned. They moved toward Richardson, who looked around desperately at the other executives. Someone say something, he shouted. Palmer, Oyelowo, anyone? But nobody moved. Nobody spoke. As they escorted Richardson out, him still protesting, still threatening lawsuits and consequences, Malika stood there trying to process what just happened. The other executives shuffled nervously, clearly wondering if they were next. Dahan addressed them without preamble. The rest of you can stay for now, but things will be changing around here. Competence and character matter more than appearance and connections. If that's a problem for anyone, there's the door. Nobody moved toward the door. Good. Meeting adjourned. They scattered like birds, filing out quickly and quietly. Soon it was just Malika and Dahan in the conference room, plus his 2 associates who stood by the entrance like statues. I don't understand, Malika said finally, finding her voice. Why would you do this? You don't even know me. Dahan studied her for a long moment. Don't I? No, she said firmly, despite her confusion. I've never met you before. You're right, he admitted, a small smile tugging at his lips. But I know of you. You helped my cousin last year. Sora? She was interning here, struggling with her project. You stayed late helping her even though you weren't her supervisor, even though you had your own work to finish. Malika blinked, memories surfacing. Sora Kim? The summer intern? She's at university now, doing well. She told me about you, about how kind you were, when nobody else gave her the time of day. Dahan's expression was unreadable. When I learned Thompson and Associates was vulnerable to acquisition, I remembered her stories. So I looked into the company, and I found interesting things, like how their best employee was being paid barely above minimum wage, while incompetent executives embezzled funds. So this is charity? The word tasted bitter in Malika's mouth. No. Dahan said it so firmly that she actually believed him. This is business. I needed someone I could trust in a key position, someone with integrity. You've proven you have both talent and character. The fact that it also corrects an injustice is just a bonus. Malika wanted to argue, to question, to understand the catch because there had to be a catch. Rich people didn't just swoop in and fix things for strangers. They didn't fire powerful executives and rehire broke assistants out of the goodness of their hearts. But she was also exhausted, tired of struggling tired of proving herself, tired of being looked down on for circumstances beyond her control. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll take the job." "Good." Daehan pulled out a business card, handed it to her. "Take the rest of today off. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., my office. We have a lot of work to do." He turned to leave, his associates moving to flank him. "Wait," Malika called out. "Why did you really buy this company? It can't just be because of what your cousin said about me." Daehan paused at the doorway, glanced back over his shoulder. "Let's just say I have my reasons. Some of them are business, and some of them are personal. You'll learn which is which eventually." Then he was gone, leaving Malika alone in the conference room that had almost witnessed her complete humiliation. She looked down at the business card in her hand. Daehan Yoon, CEO, Yoon Enterprises. The address listed was in the most upscale part of the city, the kind of building Malika had only ever seen from the outside. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother. "How was work, baby?" Malika stared at the message, then at the business card, then at the conference room where her life had just completely changed direction. She had absolutely no idea how to answer that question. The Yoon Enterprises building was everything Malika expected and more. Glass and steel reaching toward the sky, marble floors so clean she could see her reflection, and a lobby that probably cost more than her entire apartment complex. She'd barely slept the night before, her mind racing with questions. Who was Daehan really? What did he want from her? And why did the way he'd looked at her make her feel like he could see straight through to all her secrets and broken pieces? "Ms. Bladen?" A woman in a crisp blazer approached with a warm smile. "I'm Yuna, Mr. Yoon's executive assistant. He's expecting you." The elevator ride to the top floor felt like ascending to another world. Yuna chatted pleasantly about the building's amenities, the company culture, how Malika would have her own office on the executive level. "Wait, my own office?" Malika interrupted. "Of course, you're Mr. Yoon's chief operations officer now." Yuna said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Malika's stomach dropped. There must be some mistake. He said I'd report to him, but he never mentioned. "He's very decisive once he's made up his mind about someone," Yuna explained as the elevator doors opened. "Trust me, if he promoted you, you've earned it." The executive floor was all clean lines and understated elegance. Yuna led her past several offices before stopping at a large door at the end of the hall. "Mr. Yoon, Miss Bladen is here," Yuna announced after a gentle knock. "Send her in." Daehan's office was massive, but not showy. Probably. Malika didn't really have experience with executive offices to compare. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and bookshelves lined one wall filled with volumes in multiple languages. Daehan stood by the window, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Korean. When he saw her, he wrapped up the conversation quickly. "Malika, good, you're on time." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Sit, please. We have much to discuss." She sat, trying not to fidget with her purse strap. The clothes she'd worn yesterday, the ones Richardson had mocked, suddenly felt even more shabby in this pristine environment. "First things first," Daehan said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Your contract. Standard terms, but read it carefully. I don't want you agreeing to anything you're not comfortable with." Malika opened the folder, and her eyes went wide at the salary figure. This has to be a mistake. The numbers are correct. That's the annual base salary, plus performance bonuses, health insurance that covers your mother's medical needs, and a signing bonus to help you catch up on any bills. He said it so matter-of-factly, like he wasn't completely changing her entire financial reality. "Any questions?" About 1 million, but she focused on the most important one. What do you actually want me to do? Help me rebuild Thompson and Associates into something better. Richardson and his cronies ran it into the ground while lining their pockets. We're going to fix it. Properly. Dahan leaned back in his chair. You know the company, you know the clients, and more importantly, you actually care about doing good work. That makes you perfect for this role. But I've never been an executive before, Malika protested. I don't know how to. Neither did Richardson, apparently, given the mess he made. Dahan's tone was dry. You'll learn. I'll teach you what you need to know. Something in his voice made her look up sharply. You're going to personally train me? Is that a problem? Yes. Maybe. Probably. Because the way he looked at her made her heart do strange things it had no business doing. He was her boss now, and rich, and clearly from a completely different world than hers. No problem, she lied. I'm trying to understand why you're investing so much in me. What your cousin said can't be the whole reason. Dahan was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes studying her face. You're right. It's not the whole reason. Then what is? My family's business is complicated, he said carefully. We have many interests, many connections, and sometimes those connections create obligations. One of those obligations led me to investigate Thompson and Associates. What I found disgusted me. People with power using it to crush those without. So, when I had the opportunity to change things, I took it. It was an answer, but not really. Malika sensed he was holding something back, something important. And, she pressed, and I respect people who work hard, despite difficult circumstances. People who help others, even when they're struggling themselves. People who stay kind when life gives them every reason to become bitter. He held her gaze. You remind me of someone I used to know. Someone important to me. The way he said it, soft and a little sad, made Malika's chest tighten. Used to know? She died, Dahan said simply. Long time ago. But she would have liked you, I think. Before Malika could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened immediately. I need to take this. Yuna will show you to your office and help you get set up. He stood, already moving toward the door. Welcome to Yoon Enterprises, Malika. Try not to work too hard on your first day. Then he was gone, leaving her alone with a contract that would change her life and more questions than answers. Yuna appeared moments later, all smiles and efficiency, ready to see your new office. Sure, Malika said, gathering the folder. But first, can I ask you something? Of course. Mr. Yoon, is he always this intense? Yuna laughed softly. Intense is a good word for it. But he's fair, incredibly smart, and he takes care of the people who work for him. You'll see. Her new office was beautiful. Gorgeous wooden desk, comfortable chairs, windows with a view. Malika stood in the middle of it, feeling like an imposter in someone else's life. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Well. Richardson's voice dripped with venom. Enjoying your little promotion, Malika? Her blood ran cold. How did you get this number? I still have friends in this industry. Friends who owe me favors. Friends who can make your life very difficult. He paused. You think some foreign businessman can just walk in and take everything I built? You think there won't be consequences? You embezzled money, Malika said, forcing strength into her voice. You're lucky you're not in jail yet. Yet being the key word. But here's the thing about rich men like Yoon. They have secrets too. Dangerous secrets. You might want to ask yourself what kind of man can buy a company. overnight, fire a CEO, and face absolutely no pushback. Richardson's laugh was ugly. Do some research on Yoon Enterprises, sweetheart. Ask yourself what they really do, and then ask yourself if you want to be caught in the crossfire when it all falls apart. He hung up before she could respond. Malika stood there, phone still pressed to her ear, Richardson's words echoing in her mind. What kind of man can buy a company overnight? She pulled out her laptop, opened a browser, typed in Yoon Enterprises. The results were strange. Lots of legitimate business dealings, investments, real estate. But there were gaps too. Questions in forums, speculation about the family's connections in Korea, whispers about things that didn't quite add up. Ms. Bladen? Malika nearly jumped out of her skin. Daehan stood in her doorway, jacket off now, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. Are you settling in okay? Yeah, fine. Just researching. She closed her laptop a bit too quickly. His eyes narrowed slightly. Researching what? The company, Yoon Enterprises. I wanted to understand more about where I'm working now. And? There was something careful in his voice now. And I found a lot of information, Malika said slowly, but also a lot of questions. Things people seem curious about but can't quite confirm. Daehan moved to the window, hands in his pockets. My family's business interests are diverse. Sometimes that creates speculation, rumors. Not all of it is true. But some of it is? He turned to look at her. Some of it. Yes. The honesty surprised her. Richardson called me. Just now. He said, he implied that you're dangerous. That I should be careful. Richardson is bitter and looking for revenge, Daehan said dismissively. He'll say anything to... But is he wrong? Malika interrupted, standing up now. About you having secrets? About your business being more complicated than it appears? The silence stretched between them like a rubber band pulled tight. No, Daehan finally said. He's not wrong about that. Malika's heart hammered against her ribs. So what does that mean? What am I actually involved in here? Nothing illegal. Nothing that will put you in danger. He stepped closer, and she noticed details she'd missed before. A small scar above his left eyebrow, the way his shoulders carried tension, like he was always prepared for a fight. My family has connections, yes. Some of them are unconventional. But everything we do at Yoon Enterprises is legitimate. I give you my word. The word of someone I met yesterday, Malika pointed out. Fair enough. He pulled out his phone, tapped something, then showed her the screen. This is my cousin Sora. Call her. Ask her about me, about my family. She'll tell you the truth. Malika looked at the contact information. You're really okay with me investigating you? I want you to trust me, Daehan said simply. Real trust is built on truth, not blind faith. So investigate all you want. Ask questions. Be smart about this. I'd be disappointed if you weren't. Something about his straightforwardness eased the tight knot in her chest. Okay, I will. Good. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Malika, I meant what I said. I brought you here because you're talented and honest. Whatever else is happening in my world, that part is completely true. After he left, Malika sat down heavily in her new chair. She looked at Sora's contact information, then at her closed laptop, then out the window at the city below. What had she gotten herself into? 3 weeks passed in a blur of meetings, restructuring plans, and late nights at the office. Malika learned quickly that Daehan hadn't been exaggerating about the mess Richardson left behind. Client relationships were damaged, projects were poorly managed, and the company culture was toxic. But slowly, things started to change. She'd called Sora that first week, had a long conversation that left her feeling better but still confused. Sora had been honest. Her family was powerful, yes. They had connections that made some people nervous, sure. But Daehan himself? He's the best person I know, Sora had said firmly. Sometimes he has to make hard choices because of family obligations. But his heart is good. I promise you that. It wasn't a complete answer, but it was enough for Malika to keep showing up, keep working, keep trying to understand this strange new world she'd entered. And Daehan, he was different than any boss she'd ever had. He taught her about business strategy, introduced her to important clients, actually listened when she had ideas. But there were also moments when his phone would ring and his entire demeanor would shift, when he'd have to leave suddenly for meetings he wouldn't explain, when she'd catch glimpses of that harder, colder person underneath the professional exterior. "You're thinking too loudly," a voice said, snapping her out of her thoughts. Malika looked up from her desk to find Jiro standing in her doorway. He was one of Daehan's associates, the ones who'd been with him that first day at Thompson and Associates. Over the past weeks, she'd learned that Jiro was basically Daehan's right hand, loyal, observant, and surprisingly funny when he wanted to be. "Sorry, just reviewing the Morrison account again," she said, gesturing at her screen. "You've reviewed it 4 times already. It's perfect." Jiro stepped inside, closed the door. "Boss wants to see you in his office. Something's come up." The way he said it made Malika's stomach drop. What kind of something? The complicated kind. Come on. Daehan's office was more crowded than usual. Besides him, there were 3 other people Malika didn't recognize. 2 men in dark suits and a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper expression. "Malika, thank you for coming," Daehan said, his tone formal, in a way that immediately put her on edge. "These are associates of mine from Korea. They've brought some concerns about Thompson and Associates that we need to address." One of the men stepped forward. "Ms. Bladen, we understand you've been instrumental in the company's recent improvements. However, there are some historical issues that require delicate handling." "What kind of issues?" Malika asked, looking between them and Daehan. "Richardson wasn't working alone," Daehan explained. "Before we acquired the company, he'd made deals with some individuals who are now expecting those deals to be honored. Individuals we don't want to do business with." The woman spoke up, her accent crisp and precise. "They're threatening legal action if we don't fulfill certain contracts that are technically binding, but morally questionable." How questionable? Malika felt her professional instincts kicking in despite her nervousness. "They involve moving money through channels that aren't exactly transparent," Daehan said carefully. "Not illegal per se, but definitely unethical. And if we refuse, they'll tie us up in lawsuits that could damage the company's reputation significantly." Malika processed this information. "So what are our options?" "Pay them off and maintain the relationship," one of the men said. "It's the easiest solution." "Or fight them in court and risk everything we've built," the woman added. "Or..." Daehan looked at Malika. "We find a third option, something creative that gets us out of the contracts without giving them ammunition for lawsuits." "Why are you looking at me?" Malika asked. "Because you know this company better than anyone now. You know the contracts, the clients, the loopholes." He leaned forward. "If there's a way out of this mess, you're the one who'll find it." The pressure of everyone's eyes on her was immense. But Malika had spent her whole life finding creative solutions to impossible problems. How to pay rent when the money wasn't there. How to afford her mother's medicine. How to succeed when everyone expected her to fail. "Give me the contracts," she said. and access to all the communications between Richardson and these people. I need to see everything. The woman smiled slightly. Told you she was smart, Daehan. For the next 6 hours, Malika dove into the documents. It was like putting together a puzzle where half the pieces were missing and the other half were deliberately obscured. But slowly, patterns emerged. Richardson had been sloppy, overconfident, sure that his connections would protect him. He'd made mistakes. Around midnight, Malika found it. A clause buried in the third contract, written in legal language so dense that Richardson probably hadn't fully understood it himself. It gave Thompson and Associates an out if certain conditions weren't met. Conditions that, upon close examination, hadn't been met. She practically ran to Daehan's office. He was still there, jacket off, tie loosened, looking through his own set of documents. "Found something?" he asked, looking up when she burst in. "Found everything," she said, spreading the papers across his desk. "Look at this clause here, and then compare it to the timeline of payments. They missed a deadline. By 3 days. But they missed it. Which means, according to their own contract, the agreement is voidable." Daehan studied the documents, his eyes moving quickly across the pages. Then he looked up at her, and his smile was brilliant. "Malika Bladen, you're a genius." "I'm really not," she said, but she was smiling too, giddy with relief and exhaustion. "I just know how to read contracts, and I'm too stubborn to give up." "That's exactly what makes you genius," he said, standing up. He reached for his phone, then hesitated. "This information, it's going to make some powerful people very unhappy. Are you prepared for that?" "Are they dangerous?" Malika asked bluntly. "They can be, but they won't come after you directly. That's not how these things work. They'll make noise, they'll threaten, but ultimately they can't fight a contract they themselves wrote." Daehan's expression was serious. "But I need you to understand that this isn't the last complicated situation you'll face if you stay here. My world. It's not always clean and simple." Malika thought about her tiny apartment, her mother's medical bills, the years of struggling and scraping by. She thought about Richardson's sneer, about every person who'd ever looked at her, like she was less than because she was broke. "I've never had clean and simple anyway," she said. "At least here, I'm doing something that matters. So yes, I'm prepared." Daehan studied her face for a long moment. "You really are something else, you know that?" "So I've been told," Malika said wryly, though usually not as a compliment. "It is one. From me." He picked up his phone. "Go home, get some sleep. Tomorrow we present this to the lawyers and officially terminate these contracts. You've earned a rest." Malika gathered her things, but at the door she turned back. "Daehan, why do I get the feeling that you knew I'd find a solution, that you were testing me somehow?" He didn't deny it. "I needed to know if you could handle pressure, if you'd fold or fight. You fought, exactly like I hoped you would. And if I hadn't, then I would have found another way. But I had faith in you." He tilted his head slightly. "Not many people have surprised me in my life, Malika. You keep doing it. I find that refreshing." The way he looked at her made Malika's face warm. She turned quickly toward the door. "Good night, Daehan." "Good night, Malika." In the elevator down, Malika caught her reflection in the polished doors. She looked different somehow. More confident maybe, or just more herself than she'd been in years. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You think you're clever, finding that loophole. But there are always more problems where that came from. Watch your back." Malika stared at the message, her good mood evaporating. She forwarded it to Daehan immediately. His reply came seconds later. Don't worry, I've got people watching. You're safe. It should have been creepy, the idea of being watched. But somehow, coming from him, it just felt protective, like having someone in her corner for the first time in forever. Malika put her phone away and stepped out into the night. The city lights sparkled around her, full of possibility and danger in equal measure. The next morning, Malika arrived at the office to find flowers on her desk. Not the cheap grocery store kind, but a beautiful arrangement of purple orchids and white lilies in a crystal vase. The card read, "For brilliant work under pressure." D. She was still staring at them when Yuna appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Yoon asked me to let you know the legal team is meeting in conference room A at 10. He'd like you to present your findings." "Me? Shouldn't he?" "He insists. Says it's your discovery. You should get the credit." Yuna smiled. "Between you and me, I think he's proud of you." Malika's heart did that stupid fluttering thing again. "It's just my job." "If you say so," Yuna said, in a tone that suggested she didn't believe that for a second. The presentation went well. The lawyers were impressed, the Korean associates were satisfied, and the contracts were officially terminated by noon. Malika fielded questions with growing confidence, backed up by Daehan when the legal language got too complex. Afterward, as everyone filed out, Daehan caught her arm gently. "Walk with me?" They ended up on the rooftop terrace, a space Malika hadn't even known existed. It was beautifully landscaped with small trees and benches, a peaceful oasis above the chaos of the city. "I wanted to properly thank you," Daehan said, leaning against the railing. "What you did yesterday saved us months of legal battles and potentially millions in damages." "I was just doing what you hired me for," Malika said, joining him at the railing. "No, you went beyond that. You could have given up, could have said it was too complicated, could have suggested we just pay them off like everyone else recommended." He turned to look at her. "But you didn't. You fought for the right solution, not the easy one." "My mama always said if something's worth doing, it's worth doing right," Malika said softly, "even if right is harder." "Wise woman, your mother." "She is. She's also stubborn, opinionated, and doesn't let me get away with anything." Malika smiled at the thought. "You'd probably like her, actually." "I'd like to meet her someday," Daehan said, then seemed to catch himself. "I mean, if you're comfortable with that. I know we've only known each other a month." A month? Had it really only been a month? It felt longer somehow, like she'd known him for years. "Maybe," Malika said carefully. "But I'd want her to meet the real you, not just the CEO version." "There's a difference?" he asked, amused. "You know there is. I see it when you get those phone calls you won't explain. When you have meetings with people like yesterday's visitors. When you look like you're carrying the weight of something heavy, but won't tell anyone what it is." She met his eyes. "Who are you really, Daehan? Beyond the business and the suits and the perfect professional face." He was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then, "I'm someone who was born into expectations I didn't choose. Someone who has responsibilities to people who depend on me. Someone who's trying to do good things, despite coming from a world that often does bad ones." "Your family business," Malika said. It wasn't a question. "Among other things." He ran a hand through his hair, messing up the usually perfect style. "I won't lie to you, Malika. There are parts of my life that are complicated. Connections I can't simply cut, obligations I have to honor. But I'm trying to build something different here, something better. Does that make sense?" "Yeah," she said softly. "It does. I come from a different kind of complicated, but I understand wanting to be more than where you started. That's why I knew we'd work well together, Daehan said. We're both trying to rise above our circumstances without forgetting where we came from. A cold wind swept across the terrace, and Malika shivered. Immediately, Daehan shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. You don't have to. I know, he interrupted gently, but I want to. The jacket smelled like his cologne, something woodsy and clean. Malika pulled it closer, trying to ignore how good it felt to be looked after for once. Can I ask you something personal? She ventured. Always. That woman you mentioned before, the one who died, who was she to you? Daehan's expression shuddered slightly, but he answered. Her name was Yoonji. We grew up together. Our families were close. She was pure goodness, you know? Always helping people, always seeing the best in everyone, even me. Even you? Malika echoed. I wasn't always the person I am now. When I was younger, angrier, I made choices that hurt people. Yoonji never gave up on me, though. She kept believing I could be better. His voice went rough. She died in a car accident 7 years ago. Drunk driver ran a red light. I'm so sorry, Malika said, reaching out to touch his arm without thinking. He looked down at her hand, then covered it with his own. Thank you. She would have liked you. You have that same quality she had. That determination to do right, even when it costs you. I'm not sure that's a compliment, Malika said, trying to lighten the mood. Sounds exhausting. It is, Daehan agreed, a small smile returning. But it's also admirable. Don't ever lose that, Malika. The world has enough people who take the easy road. They stood there for a moment, his hand still covering hers, the city sprawling below them. It felt significant somehow, like a turning point she couldn't quite name. Mr. Yoon? Jiro's voice called from the terrace door. Sorry to interrupt, but you have that call scheduled with Tokyo. The moment broke. Daehan stepped back, professional mask sliding back into place. Right, thank you, Jiro. He looked at Malika. Yeah, go. Important business and all that. She shrugged off his jacket, handed it back. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and she felt that zing of awareness all the way to her toes. We'll talk more later, Daehan said. There's actually something I wanted to ask you about. Dinner meeting tomorrow night with a potential client. I'd like you there. Of course, Malika said. Just send me the details. After he left, Malika stayed on the terrace a while longer, thinking about everything and nothing. About Yoonji and the weight of being compared to someone so clearly cherished. About Daehan's complicated world and whether she was ready for all it might entail. About the way her heart had raced when he'd looked at her just now, like she was someone precious. Dangerous thoughts. He was her boss, her savior, someone so far out of her league it was almost funny. Whatever she was feeling, she needed to lock it down before it became a problem. Except when she got back to her office, there was another note on her desk in Daehan's precise handwriting. Thank you for listening. Not many people want to hear the truth about who I really am. Your willingness to try means more than you know. Malika sat down heavily, staring at the note. She was in so much trouble. The dinner meeting was at one of those restaurants where the menu didn't have prices, which Malika had learned meant very expensive. She'd stressed over what to wear, finally settling on a simple black dress she'd bought, with her first real paycheck from Yoon Enterprises. Daehan met her in the lobby, looking unfairly good in a dark gray suit. His eyes widened slightly when he saw her. That dress is perfect. Thanks, Malika said, fighting the urge to fidget. So who's this client we're meeting? Vincent Tanya. He owns a chain of luxury hotels across 3 continents. Very particular about who he does business with. Daehan offered his arm. Ready? The restaurant was everything she expected. Dim lighting, hushed conversations, waiters who moved like dancers. They were led to a private dining room where a distinguished older man stood to greet them. Daehan, my boy, Vincent said warmly, shaking Daehan's hand. Good to see you again. Mr. Tanya, thank you for meeting with us. This is Malika Bladen, my Chief Operations Officer. Vincent's handshake was firm, his eyes sharp. Ms. Bladen, Daehan speaks very highly of your abilities. He's generous with praise, Malika said, smiling. Not from what I hear. Please sit. Dinner was a dance of conversation. Business talk, mixed. With personal stories. Vincent testing Malika with questions disguised as small talk. She held her own, drawing on everything Daehan had taught her over the past month. You know, Vincent said halfway through the main course, I was skeptical when Daehan told me he'd put someone so new in such a high position. No offense meant. None taken, Malika said evenly. But I see now why he did it. You have the kind of insight that can't be taught, only earned through experience. Real experience, not the kind you get from business school. Vincent smiled. Your perspective on the market analysis was brilliant, by the way. I think we can definitely work together. Relief flooded through Malika. She caught Daehan's eye, and he gave her a subtle nod of approval. The rest of dinner passed smoothly. By the time dessert arrived, the deal was basically sealed, pending contract details. I'll let you two enjoy your dessert, Vincent said, standing. But Malika, one last question if I may. Why work for Yoon Enterprises? Someone with your skills could go anywhere. Malika thought about how to answer that. Because Mr. Yoon gave me a chance when nobody else would, and because I believe in what we're building here. A company that values character as much as competence. Vincent looked at Daehan. Hold on to this one. She's special. I know, Daehan said quietly. After Vincent left, Malika let out a long breath. Did that just happen? Did we actually land him? We didn't land him, Daehan corrected. You did. He was ready to walk away until you made that comment about market diversification. That's what sold him. I was just being honest about what I observed, Malika protested. Exactly. Your honesty is one of your greatest strengths. Daehan signaled for the check. Come on, let me give you a ride home. We should celebrate properly. Celebrate how? Malika asked suspiciously. I know a place. Trust me. She probably shouldn't. Getting into a car alone with her boss, who she was developing increasingly complicated feelings for, was a terrible idea. But she nodded anyway. Okay. The place turned out to be an overlook point at the edge of the city, where you could see the lights spread out like stars below. Daehan parked and they got out, leaning against the hood of his car. This is beautiful, Malika said softly. I come here when I need to think. When the world gets too loud, and I need to remember why I'm fighting so hard to build something good. He glanced at her. Thank you, by the way, for tonight, for the past month, for taking a chance on someone you had every reason to be suspicious of. You gave me a job when I desperately needed one, Malika pointed out. Pretty sure I should be thanking you. No, this goes beyond that now. You've proven yourself over and over. You're not here because of charity or pity. You're here because you belong here. Daehan turned to face her fully. I need you to know that. The intensity in his voice made Malika's chest tight. Why does it matter so much? That I know? Because... He hesitated, something vulnerable flickering across his face. Because I don't want you to leave. And I'm afraid that if you think you're only here because I felt sorry for you, eventually You'll walk away to prove you don't need anyone's help. That's oddly specific, Malika said. Yoonji did that, Daehan admitted. Before she died, we'd had an argument about my family, about the things I was involved in. She said she didn't want to be around me if I wouldn't change, wouldn't walk away from that world. I told her I couldn't, and she left. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Daehan. Malika reached for his hand without thinking. He intertwined their fingers, staring at their joined hands. I've carried that guilt for 7 years. Wondering if I'd just been honest with her sooner, if I'd tried harder to change, maybe she wouldn't have been driving angry that night. Maybe she would have seen the car coming. You can't think like that, Malika said firmly. A drunk driver killed her. Not you, not your argument. Someone else's terrible choice. I know that logically, but feelings don't always listen to logic. He looked up, met her eyes. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't leave because you think you're just a charity case. And if you do decide to leave, please be honest with me about why. I'm not going anywhere, Malika said softly. Unless you fire me, and honestly, even then, I'd probably argue with you about it. That surprised a laugh out of him. I believe you would. They stood there in the quiet city lights below, stars above, hands still linked. Malika knew she should pull away, should maintain professional distance. But it felt too good, having someone see her clearly and value what they saw. Can I tell you something? She asked. Always. Before you showed up that day, I was starting to believe Richardson was right about me. That maybe I was too broke, too different, too whatever to succeed in that world. Malika's voice went rough. You changed that. Not just by giving me a job, but by treating me like I was already worth something. Like my ideas mattered. Like I mattered. You do matter, Daehan said intensely. More than you know. The way he looked at her made Malika's heart race. For a moment, she thought he might, but then he stepped back, releasing her hand. We should get you home. It's late. The drive back was quiet but comfortable. When they pulled up outside her apartment building, modest compared to his world but home, Daehan walked her to the door. Thank you for tonight, Malika said. For dinner, for the overlook, for everything. Thank you for being someone I can talk to honestly. That's rarer than you'd think in my position. He turned to leave, but Malika caught his sleeve. Daehan, whatever complicated things are happening in your world, you can talk to me about them. I might not understand everything, but I'll listen. And I won't judge you for circumstances you didn't choose. Something shifted in his expression. I'll remember that. After he left, Malika climbed the stairs to her apartment, feeling like she was floating. Her mother was already asleep, but there was a note on the kitchen counter. Baby girl, you were glowing when you left tonight. I don't know what's happening at that new job, but I like seeing you happy. Love you forever. Mama Malika smiled, tucking the note into her pocket. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daehan. Sleep well. Tomorrow we start working on the Tanya contracts. You ready? She texted back. Always. His response was immediate. That's my girl. Malika stared at those 3 words, heart pounding. She was reading too much into it, probably. He didn't mean it that way. But oh, how she wished he did. 2 months later, Malika had settled into her role so completely that she could barely remember what life was like before Yoon Enterprises. The company was thriving under their joint leadership. Client relationships were stronger than ever, and she'd even started to understand the more complicated aspects of Daehan's world, including the part where a rival company tried to sabotage them. They did what? Malika stared at Jiro in disbelief. Planted false information in the trade publications, suggesting Yoon Enterprises is involved in money laundering. It's complete fiction, but the timing is strategic, right when we're about to close the Tanya deal. Jiro looked worried. Boss is handling it, but he wanted you to know. Malika found Daehan in his office, on the phone speaking rapid-fire Korean. When he saw her, he wrapped up the call quickly. I heard, she said, closing the door. How bad is it? Manageable. My lawyers are already drafting defamation suits, and we have documentation proving the claims are false. He loosened his tie, looking exhausted. But it's going to be a messy fight. Who's behind it? Competitor who lost out on the Tanya contract. They're upset about it. Daehan's tone suggested upset was an understatement. What can I do to help? You can stay out of it, he said firmly. These people play dirty, Malika. I don't want you caught in the crossfire. Too late, she countered. I'm already involved. We're a team, remember? You taught me that. Something flickered in his eyes. Pride, maybe, or worry, or both. You're stubborn, you know that? So I've been told. She moved closer to his desk. Now tell me what we're really dealing with here. He sighed, then pulled out his phone, showed her messages. Threats mostly, demands that they back out of certain deals, insinuations about what would happen if they didn't comply. These are criminal threats, Malika said, anger rising. We should take this to the police. It's not that simple, Daehan interrupted. The people making these threats have connections. Going to the authorities might make things worse. So what? We just let them bully us? No. We handled it the way I've always handled these situations, carefully, strategically, and without giving them ammunition to escalate. He stood, came around the desk. But I need you to trust me on this, Malika. And I need you to promise you'll be careful. No working late alone. No walking to your car without security. No. I get it, she said, touched by his concern. I'll be careful. Over the next week, the situation intensified. More false stories appeared. Clients started calling with concerns, and Malika noticed Daehan becoming more tense, more guarded. He still treated her well, still valued her input, but there was a distance now that hadn't been there before. Then one night, everything came to a head. Malika was working late, despite Daehan's warnings, when she heard voices outside her office. Angry voices. She recognized one of them. Mr. Palmer, one of the executives they'd kept on from the Richardson era. Telling you she's the weak link, Palmer was saying. Get to her. You get to Yoon. He's got a thing for her. Anyone can see it. Malika's blood ran cold. She quickly pulled out her phone, started recording. And how do you suggest we get to her? An unfamiliar voice asked. I don't know. That's your department. Scare her. Threaten her family. Whatever it takes to make her convince Yoon to back off. Palmer's voice was cruel. She's just some broke girl who got lucky. She'll fold under pressure. Before Malika could decide what to do, another voice joined the conversation. Daehan's. Gentlemen, I believe you're on my property having a conversation you shouldn't be having. There was a scuffle, raised voices, then silence. Malika's door opened, and Daehan stood there, looking absolutely furious. Did you hear all that? He asked tightly. Most of it. I recorded it too. She showed him her phone. Some of the tension left his shoulders. Smart. Come on. We're leaving. Now. But now, Malika. The edge in his voice allowed no argument. She grabbed her things and followed him. Palmer and the other man were being escorted out by security, Palmer shooting her a look of pure venom as they passed. In the elevator, Daehan was silent, jaw clenched. Malika had never seen him this angry before, and honestly, It was a little scary. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. He looked at her sharply. "Sorry for what?" "For staying late when you told me not to. For being, what did Palmer call it? The weak link." "You are not the weak link," Daehan said fiercely. He grabbed her shoulders, not roughly but firmly. "Do you understand me? You're one of the strongest people I know. Palmer is a traitor and a coward, and he'll be dealt with accordingly." "Dealt with how?" Malika asked. "Legally. He'll be arrested for conspiracy and whatever else my lawyers can make stick." Daehan released her shoulders but didn't step back. "But right now, I need to make sure you're safe." The elevator doors opened directly into an underground parking garage. Daehan led her to his car, held the door open for her. "Where are we going?" she asked as he started driving. "Somewhere secure, just for tonight, until I can arrange proper protection for you." They drove in silence through the city streets, eventually pulling up to a building Malika didn't recognize. It was sleek, modern, clearly expensive. "This is your place?" she guessed. "Penthouse suite, most secure building in the city." He parked, came around to open her door. "I know this is uncomfortable, but I promise you're safe here." The penthouse was beautiful, but not showy. Comfortable furniture, warm lighting, huge windows overlooking the city. Malika stood in the living room feeling wildly out of place. "I'll show you to the guest room," Daehan said. "There are clothes in the closet that should fit, toiletries in the bathroom. Make yourself at home." But as he turned to leave, Malika caught his hand. "Wait. Talk to me. What's really happening here? Beyond Palmer and the threats. What are we dealing with?" Daehan was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed, ran his free hand through his hair. "The truth? I underestimated how far these people would go. I thought my reputation would be enough to keep you out of it. I was wrong." "Your reputation," Malika repeated. "The dangerous parts of your world that you don't talk about." "Yes. So tell me now. All of it. Because if I'm already in danger, I deserve to know why." He looked at her, something pained in his expression. "If I tell you everything, there's no going back. You'll see parts of me, parts of my world, that might change how you feel about me." "Try me," Malika said steadily. So he did. He told her about his family's connections, about obligations that went back generations, about the delicate balance between legitimate business and the shadowy world his relatives operated in. He told her about threats he'd handled, problems he'd solved, choices he'd made that he wasn't proud of. "But I'm trying to build something different," he finished. "Something clean. That's why I acquired Thompson and Associates, why I've been so careful about which contracts we take on. I want to prove that you can do good business without compromising your integrity." Malika absorbed all of this. "And the people threatening us now? They represent the old way of doing things. They want me to fail, to come crawling back to the family with my tail between my legs. They're using you to get to me because they know." He stopped, looked away. "Because they know what?" Malika prompted. "Because they know you matter to me," Daehan said quietly. "More than I probably should let you matter, given our professional relationship and the complications of my world." Malika's heart stuttered. "How much do I matter?" He turned back to her, and the look in his eyes made her forget how to breathe. "Enough that I've been fighting every instinct I have for the past 3 months. Enough that hearing Palmer talk about threatening you made me want to do things I've sworn I wouldn't do anymore. Enough that I brought you to my home, my private space, because I trust you more than almost anyone." "Daehan." She stepped closer. "I matter to you as an employee, or As you know the answer to that, he interrupted softly. You're brilliant, brave, beautiful, and you challenge me in ways nobody else does. Of course, my feelings have crossed professional lines. I've just been trying to be respectful, trying not to put you in an impossible position when I'm technically your boss, and when my world is so dangerous and complicated. Malika's mind raced. Everything she'd been feeling, everything she'd been trying to suppress. He felt it too. What if I don't care about the complications? She asked. You should care. You deserve someone whose life is simple, who can give you safety and stability. I've never had simple, safe, or stable, Malika countered. What I care about is having someone who sees me, really sees me, and values what they see. Someone who believes in me, who trusts me with truth even when it's hard. Someone who makes me want to be braver than I knew I could be. Dihan closed the distance between them, raised his hand like he might touch her face, then dropped it. I can't ask you to accept this life. The threats, the complications, the constant balancing act between my family obligations and my own goals. It's not fair to you. What's not fair is making that decision for me, Malika said firmly. She took his hand, the one he'd dropped. I'm a grown woman. I can decide what risks I'm willing to take, what complications I'm willing to accept. And I'm choosing to stay, to fight beside you, to see where this goes despite everything working against us. Malika. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a plea all at once. Unless you don't feel the same, she added, suddenly uncertain. Unless this is just you being protective of an employee. He laughed softly, sadly. You really don't see it, do you? How every time you walk into a room, my world gets a little brighter. How I find excuses to work late, just hoping you'll still be there. How you've become the first person I want to tell when something good happens, and the only person who can calm me down when something goes wrong. Then why are we fighting this? Malika whispered. Because I'm terrified, Dahan admitted. I lost Yunji because I couldn't protect her from my world. The thought of losing you too, of my choices putting you in danger. His voice broke slightly. I couldn't survive that again. You're not going to lose me, Malika said fiercely. I'm stronger than I look. I'm smarter than people think. And I'm definitely more stubborn than you give me credit for. So stop trying to protect me from living my own life. Dahan studied her face, searching for something. Whatever he found, there must have satisfied him, because he finally closed the last bit of distance between them. But he didn't grab her dramatically or sweep her into anything. Instead, he gently cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing her cheekbones, and looked at her like she was precious beyond measure. You're sure? He asked one last time. I'm sure. He smiled then, real and genuine and so beautiful it hurt. Then I guess we're doing this, you and me against whatever comes next. Together, Malika confirmed. Together, he agreed. They stood there in his penthouse, the city sprawling below them, the future uncertain, but somehow less scary because they'd face it side by side. There would be more threats, more complications, more challenges ahead. But for right now, in this moment, Malika felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, real, solid, unshakable hope, and that was worth fighting for. So yeah, that happened. If you made it this far, thank you for sticking with Malika and Dihan's story. Let me know what you think in the comments, and maybe hit that subscribe button if you want more stories like this. This whole journey has been something else, and honestly, I'm just glad you were here for it with me.